for sidebar stories with Strawberry's desire to come back to L.A. and Cohn's column and Howell's ejection and suspension and all the rest. Forget all of that. One game for the pennant. And Tim McCarver, how does the Mets lineup? Len Dykstra to lead off in center field, and as was the case last night, Wally Backman bats second. Keith Hernandez hitting in the 3 spot. Darryl Strawberry having a good series with 9 hits, bats 4th. And the big man last night, Kevin McReynolds, hitting 5th. Switch hitting Greg Jeffries, the rookie 3rd baseman, in the 6th spot. Gary Carter hitting 7th. Kevin Elster again gets the start tonight at short. And the pitcher, Ron Darling, who started game 3 and was not involved in the decision. Orel Hershiser goes to the mound for the Dodgers, making his 4th appearance in the series. Once more the inside pitch on Orel from Mike Schmidt.
Orel Hershiser's best at
Hamilton, Griffin, Sachs, and Hatcher, and it's been that way for the last 6 games. Stubbs started game 1 at first base. Scioscia behind the plate, and here is Len Dykstra, who hit .270 during the regular season.
Did not start against Hershiser, didn't walk in that first game to really get him out of the ball game.
And the crowd very much in the game at the beginning, and the first pitch is a breaking ball, high, ball 1, 1-0.
Kind of an interesting first pitch selection, the curveball.
Well, you sit on the bench and you watch Dykstra the last couple of games. He has been smashing the high fastball.
And he hits this one in the air to left center field, hobbling over is Gibson, and you can see the limp already. 1 out.
Boy, and when you see that, it goes back to the question we talked about last night. Is maybe 100% of somebody else better than 60% of Gibson? I guess we're just going to have to wait and see.
The thing you can't wait, Jim, is if the players who are out there with him see him on one leg, it's got to be an inspiration to all of them.
Yeah, but how about defensively? And
well, that's true. I mean, tangibly, I agree with you. There's no question about it. We saw him hitting before the ball game. The leg did not appear to bother him hitting as it did last night.
Wally Backman with Hamilton shortened up at 3rd to guard against a prospective bunt. The count 1 ball and no strikes. Backman, who was hitting, and there's Hamilton in the 8th spot earlier in the series, moved up last night and strokes this one foul, and the count 1-1. On deck is Keith Hernandez. Hershiser pitching in game 1 when this series began a week ago yesterday. Then he would have pitched in game 4, but because of the rainout, Tommy Lasorda moved him up to game 3, and because of that, he is able to pitch game 7. The 1-1 pitch is hit foul. If Lasorda had not opted after the rainout on Friday night in New York to juggle his rotation, then Hershiser either couldn't have pitched tonight or would have to do it on 2 days rest.
And this is the first time in his career he's ever pitched 2 consecutive starts with only 3 days rest.
If you can call 2 appearances in the bullpen, 1 in the game, 3 days rest.
That's right.
He doesn't throw between starts. He's done it twice.
1-2 to Backman. Fouled away again.
Of course, I think what he has said is, hey, I mean, again, if you go back to August when he started this scoreless scheme that ran up to 59 during the regular season, then it went to 67 and a third after the first ball game. He's been in such a great mental state that he does it with minimal physical effort. Very compact windup, stays within himself, and that's the groove he was talking about.
1-2 to Backman is inside, 2-2. And that runs counter when you come in on Backman to the way the Dodgers are playing him, shading him well around toward left.
Well, it goes back to the game on Saturday. Backman had the big hit that got Orel out of there. He tried to pitch him in. He pulled the ball. John Shelby's out in left center, and it fell into right field. Right center.
2-2 is looped over the head of Griffin out into left field for a base hit. First hit of the game belongs to the Mets. Backman is on with 1 out, and that'll bring up Keith Hernandez. Hernandez last night was 1 for 5. Overall, a decent series. Last night, however, in his first 3 at-bats, he stranded runners in each situation. A lot of missed opportunities for the Mets early on, but it did not come back to haunt them, thanks mainly to David Cohn.
The Mets came out running last night with Dykstra on first. The first pitch, Backman hit and run. We'll see if they have the same philosophy tonight.
Hershiser, a very good move. We talked about it earlier. He breaks that left knee. Tough to get a good jump on. Better to hit and run with. And he's very quick to the plate, if you saw right there.
1-0 the count.
You wonder about the velocity. I mean, Backman hit a pretty good pitch down in the strike zone. Got to it and just hit it over the shortstop's head. Normally, you'd get on top of that ball.
1-0 the count. Backman at first base. And 1 out in the first inning. One big difference, of course, in a game like this, if your starting pitcher struggles early in the regular season, you can afford to let him work through it, especially when he's the ace of the staff. Not tonight. One and 0 the count. And he misses away, and it's 2-0.
Well, that's the dilemma in my mind that Tommy Lasorda has. Here you have the guy that's been so outstanding the last couple of months. When do you relieve him if you need to? They used Brian Holton last night, who has pitched now in 2 consecutive days. Have a lot of other available pitchers, but it's tough to relieve your #1 starter, especially early.
The shot of Tommy indicated to me he's not real happy with the way Hershiser is throwing, at least at the moment.
Well, velocity, you mentioned velocity, Jim. Velocity not nearly as important for Hershiser as some pitchers. A pitcher like Dwight Gooden, for instance.
And it's 3-0.
And the reason for that is Hershiser throws a sinker, and sinker ballers are at times are even more effective when they're tired.
Well, Tommy John types, but my only problem is that when you pitch as much as he has, you got to work a little bit harder to get the ball to home plate. And when you do it, the ball straightens out. So when I say that he throws Backman a sinker down and away, yet he still did not hit it on the ground, he hit it into left field, he may not have as good a velocity, so he doesn't have as much action on the ball.
3-1. We'll watch Backman here, held on by Hatcher at first, nobody out in the first inning. He goes, and the pitch is grounded foul, so it's 3-2.
Hey, the thing about pitching in big games, as Tommy Lasorda said, I want Bulldog to go out there and have the best stuff he ever had. You talked about the Mets turning it on and off. As a pitcher, you can't do that. And, you know, he hopes. And, of course, he's never thrown between starts all year, and yet he relieved and then threw in between starts again the next day to try to help him out.
If Backman ran 3-1, he's most certainly running 3-2 with Hernandez the hitter.
Hershiser pays him a visit and almost had Backman leaning the other way.
Cannot get picked off in that situation, and that's what you have to tell yourself as a runner. Hershiser almost catching Backman leaning on that right foot.
3-2. Backman ready to take off, and that time his lead was 1.5 steps.
Well, you combine a quick move, which Hershiser have, a deceptive one, and then a good throw. I mean, he makes as good of throws to first as he does to home plate, so that really helps when you're trying to pick somebody off. Quickness doesn't help you if the ball's up about shoulder high.
There goes Backman. He stumbled as he got going, and it's fouled away again. So it remains 3-2.
There's that little stumble on the first step. But you have to be cautious as a base runner at first base, because it's not your problem to put the ball in play. It's almost a departmentalized play. You wait until the pitcher makes sure he throws, and it's up to the hitter to make contact.
1 out, no score, first inning. Backman, who singled at first. He goes, and the pitch is fouled away again. So Hernandez continues to make Hershiser work. And this is another thing that, of course, Lasorda will be very aware of and not too happy with in a situation like this, with Hernandez up there for right now 8 pitches will be Hershiser's pitch count.
And also, where are those pitches? They are not down in the strike zone, they're up. Now that's not Orel Hershiser. And again, I mean, it's only the first inning. He's got to be a little bit, maybe not nervous, but apprehensive.
He is trying to settle into a groove. He has been in such a groove. It's very odd to see him right now trying to get into it, because he's been in a groove since the end of August.
course, his main objective now is he knows he has to throw a strike to Hernandez. Let the guy get a little bit bigger lead, just throw a strike.
Backman goes, and the pitch is high, and so the Mets have an immediate threat. Runners at first and second, and one out. And Darryl Strawberry having a very good series coming to the plate. Funny thing about Strawberry, he's 9 for 26, and yet he hasn't had the real big hit, the hit that would make you sit up and take notice. So here is probably the most heralded of the Mets, at least offensively, having a big series, but kind of quietly. And he's 3 for 8 facing Hershiser in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's hitting 190 points higher than Kirk Gibson, but when you think of dramatic hits, you think of the 2 home runs by Gibson, even though he did hit a home run off way into right field off John Tudor.
Strike, got the corner, outside corner. Harry Wendelstedt is calling the balls and strikes tonight. The full rotation complete now. Harry started there in game 1. John McSherry at first, Joe West at second, Dutch Rennert at third, Bob Davidson down the line and left, Paul Runge in right. 2 on, 1 out, and the 0-1 pitch is away, and the count is 1-1.
The thing about being tired as a pitcher is that when you realize you don't have the velocity you'd like to have, you start reaching back and trying to maybe strain to throw the ball hard. First roommate I ever had, Robin Roberts, throw the ball out in front of you. When you're tired, you can't do that.
2-1 the count.
Again high, as you pointed out earlier. He walked Hernandez on the high fastball. Hernandez fouling back the high fastball. And you can see the concern on Tommy Lasorda's face.
Let's go Bulldog. Come on, Bulldog, is what he says.
Of course, his great strength is the ability to throw ground balls if he gets the ball down. So one pitch can get him out of a big inning.
2-1 to Strawberry is grounded to the right side. This may be the pitch. Sacks to Griffin, back to first. Too late. Strawberry beats it out. Just does beat it out to prolong the inning. Backman goes to third. So the speed of Strawberry, and the Mets are able to avoid a double play because of that. 2 down.
I think they avoided the double play because of the double clutch of Alfredo Griffin. You can see bang bang at first, but Strawberry beat it. The double clutch to Alfredo Griffin, or by Alfredo Griffin. It's a good throw from Sachs to the outside. Now watch. Now that little double clutch in the transfer allows Strawberry to beat the play.
Not completely in sync was Griffin as he came across the bag. McReynolds at the plate takes a strike and the count 1-1. So Kevin, who was 3 for 20 at the beginning of last night's game and then was 4 for 4 with a sacrifice fly, but Hershiser has really had his number. 0 for his last 18 against Oral. 1-1.
He has not had a hit against Hershiser since 1986 when he was a member of the San Diego Padres. So that means he's 0 for the Mets.
Right, I'll tell you what, and if you're pitching and you know that, and I'm sure, I mean, Oral has a little computer he takes and he writes things down. I'm sure that's in there. Get a little nervous sometimes, you say the guys do.
Especially after last night, the way McReynolds was swinging the bat, the count 1-2.
Now, it's funny, you talk to a guy like Kevin McReynolds and you say, why don't you hit Hershiser? He'll say, I never get a good pitch to hit. He probably does, but when he does, he fouls it off. And if you ask Hershiser, he said, I always make good pitches. And so far, he's been able to do that. You can watch Socia, you can see if he's happy with where he's throwing the ball just by if he throws it where he moves.
Hershiser working very slowly with Backman at third, Strawberry at first. And the 1-2 pitch, breaking ball inside. It fooled him, but the pitch was in off the plate, and the count 2-2.
Again, we talked about throwing a curveball out in front of you. Now he's underneath it. Usually when a pitcher gets under a curveball, another one, he doesn't have his rhythm yet, which is possible, but you can also be tired.
Well, that was a very
7th, 8th innings, yes.
Very dangerous pitch right there. Socia again moving outside early.
Well, from what I've seen, I mean, he does not have a curveball yet, and that's one of his really main pitches. As Mike Schmidt said in the inside pitch, he can get his curveball over any time, any count.
2-2 pitch is hit right into the glove of Hamilton. So it takes him 29 pitches but he escapes a first inning jam. And he complained about the conditions, thought the game shouldn't have been played, and he can't complain about the conditions tonight. They're perfect.
You know, did spend 2 days in the training room after slipping and sliding his way through 6 innings. It's really hard to judge a guy after he pitched in those kind of conditions, but he did gut it out, didn't get hit hard, but gave up.
Gut it out is the key for Ron Darling. I think he's done that all season long.
To center field, base hit. Steve Sax, who has stolen 5 bases in this series and had 42 in the regular season, leads off with a single. And up comes Mickey Hatcher.
Sax and Darling and Carter, out of the 15 stolen base attempts, only thrown out 2. So everybody says he has a very good move, but takes a long time to get the ball to home plate. So the Dodgers feel they can run on him.
You look at the Mets defensively with Sax at first base, and the pitch to Hatcher is outside, ball 1, 1-0.
The reason I said that about Darling is because Darling has been pitching with pain this year. His right arm has been bothering him, and yet in 25 of 34 starts, he has worked at least 7 innings.
You're talking about the supposed bone chips that we talked about earlier in the year. And he said one time they can be bothering him because they do float around. He said he'll get into late innings, put his arm up, and he'll just have pain.
Sax goes, gets a great jump, and it's a base hit down the line and left as Sax is on his way to third. Hatcher on his way to second with a double.
Amalfitani had held Sax up at third base before Kevin McReynolds slipped in left field. Sax had plenty of time to regain his momentum, but with nobody out, you just can't take the chance. Hatcher popping this fastball right down the line by a diving Greg Jeffries. Playing Hatcher in. Sax 3 steps, he's looking up, and you'll see Amalfitani. When a double's hit down the left field line, you have to be a little more cautious. It's an easier throw for the left fielder, but Kevin McReynolds, in fielding that ball, slipped down. But with nobody out, Amalfitani could not take the chance of sending Sax.
Why was he playing in? Excuse me, Al.
With the 3, 4, and 5 hitters coming up. Gibson at the plate and takes low, ball 1.
Very unusual place to play a guy like Mickey Hatcher. It's not a bunt situation, not a pull hitter. You play deep, knock that ball down, or you make the play. But
Mets infield playing back, and they'll give up a run on a ground ball and also on a fly ball this deep because backing up is Dykstra. Sax is tagging, so is Hatcher. Both men advance. The Dodgers lead it 1-0. A bunt, and tonight a 385-foot out to score a run.
Look where the pitch is, not up like David Cohn pitched him. It's down. He tries to hit this ball a long way. Here, right down the middle, outside part. Just missed a home run.
You saw almost no stride at all. That's what Manny Mota and Kirk Gibson were working on in batting practice today. Don't make the weight shift. Just don't stride.
And as was the case the other day, the infield is back with Marshall going after a breaking ball. So Davy Johnson did this the other day. We found it curious, but he got away with it. He was down 2-0 and played the infield back and gave up another run on a ground ball and eventually came back to win the game. But what he's saying here is, I'm giving up a run on a grounder to go down 2-0, which means, of course, you've got to score 3 eventually to win the game.
Well, that was in the 5th inning the other day. In the 1st inning, normally you don't do it, but of course everybody knows this is not a normal ball game.
0-1 the count. In the dirt, and that saves a run, and the count 1-1.
Before Marshall came up, Davy Johnson held out 2 fingers of his right hand, which would imply that for the infield to play back until Marshall has 2 strikes. And then you may see the right side or even Elster move in, because a hitter is in a more defensive posture with 2 strikes. We'll see.
You think that Davey, who's a computer whiz, knows that Marshall's 3 for 18. You did, and he said, I chase bad pitches. Now, if you have that stat, you might play the infield in.
1-1 the count. And it's grounded foul outside third, so it's 1-2. Now let's look at the infield. Elster's saying to Backman, move in. You're exactly right, Tim. That's what they're doing. With 2 strikes now, the Mets play their infield in.
Saying Marshall chased 2 bad pitches. He said before the game, he says, I have to make him throw me strikes. He wants me to nibble. Of course, he doesn't do that, and now Darling has the edge.
Look how far Hernandez is off at first base.
30 feet. And a very big strikeout. In fact, a huge strikeout here in the first inning. With a man at third and 1 out, the infield can play at regular depth now with Shelby coming to the plate.
Well, he likes to get ahead and then throw the split finger. Now, you see the ball, you see the spin on the ball, tumbling. Marshall, look how much he's over that ball.
Boy, that's a great shot of Gary Carter anticipating the split finger fastball down. You could see him going down before the ball even got there, anticipating it down.
Shelby at the plate. And of course, as far as Carter is concerned, not his best year by any stretch of the imagination, but all of the things that never show up in the box score. That pitch in the dirt, blocking the pitch in the dirt, and the pressure with somebody like Ron Darling and a man at third. Got the corner, 1-1. Ben Hines, the Dodger hitting instructor with Lasorda. And Shelby takes away 2-1.
Well, of all the Met pitchers, especially the starters, probably has the least velocity. That's why it's that important for Ron to stay out of the middle of the plate. So he'll run it away from you, cut it in, throw the split finger and the curveball.
2-2.
And then he sets you up. He has you looking away, and throws that ball right by you. You consider he won 17 games, which is the most he's ever won in his career with a bad elbow, or at least an elbow that's bothered him off and on. He's had a marvelous year.
Shelby, of course, strikes out a lot, 9 times already in this series. And he lifts this one down the line in right field, and it is a foul ball, just foul.
Oh.
And Paul Runge right on top of it to call it. Lasorda can't believe it. Less than a foot, I would think.
We have had
much less.
2 plays now in this series where a left and right field umpire have come into play. One defensively and one offensively. This ball couldn't have been fouled by more than an inch. Oh, boy.
And you can see Runge holding his fingers slightly apart, indicating to Lasorda by that much. 2-2 the count. The splitter gets him. Shelby strikes out for the 10th time in the series, and at the end of 1, it's the Dodgers 1. Scoring first has won only 5. Dodgers score first here today, 1-0. In the second inning with Jeffries leading things off for the Mets. And Hershiser, who labored through the first and escaped unscathed, is 1-1 with him. Jeffries, Carter, and Elster in the second inning. 2-1.
Jeffries has been the most dominating hitter against any pitcher as far as either side is concerned. He has 4 hits against Hershiser and 1 walk.
In the air to deep right center field. Backing up is Marshall. Has a play. Makes the catch on the warning track.
And I'll tell you what, one thing. You got to be a quick study if you're going to be a good pitcher. And Hershiser, who did not get his curveball over, he did get it over to McReynolds, is gone to the changeup. We have not seen him throw a changeup in the first 2 games, and you can see him just a little bit out in front, and that's why this ball doesn't go out of the ballpark. All those hits have been on fastballs. So here's Hershiser, and here's Marshall making the catch. Plenty of room. gone to the changeup early.
Gary Carter with one out and the base is empty. Pops it in the air. Hatcher should have a play. 2 down. And so Hershiser has retired the last 4 in a row. Remember, he began the game after getting Dykstra. Backman singled and Hernandez walked. He got Strawberry to hit into a force, and McReynolds lined out to end the top of the first. So 2 down now in the second inning, and Elster is the batter.
It's great when he describes his early, I guess, athletic background. He said, I finished first in the Persona hit, run, and throw contest, and then it was all downhill till I got to the major leagues.
Elster takes a strike. Hershiser made his major league debut on September 1st of 1983. And interestingly, Darling made his big league debut 5 days later. So 2 men with similar experience locked up in 1 game for the pennant. 1-1 the count. And there's Darling on deck. Elster playing the last 2 nights because Howard Johnson has slumped through the series, 1 for 17. So Davy Johnson brings Elster in off the bench. 2-1.
That could present a problem. I don't know if Hershiser, he's only pitched once against the Dodgers, but you don't pitch against the guy, and Elster has hit 9 home runs. You don't know where to go.
Elster has more home runs against the Dodgers than any other Met. Very surprising. 3 home runs for the year against Dodger pitching.
He had 9 overall this season, and the count 3-1.
So now you're 3-1. You know Elster's probably looking for a fastball, and you don't know what kind of bat speed he has.
Let's say throw him a fastball right now, right down the middle of the plate.
In there, 3-2.
I mean, if you can't throw an 8th-place hitter a fastball, then you're Oral Hershiser. You really limited yourself.
No, but what I'm saying is that you're a little bit wary only because you haven't pitched against the guy before, and that you just don't know where his power is, whether he's a low ball hitter or a high ball hitter.
That's a liner by Sachs and out into right field for a base hit. So on a 3-2 pitch, Kevin Elster prolongs the inning. If nothing else, even if Darling goes out, that's a big hit in the sense that it turns the lineup over. It would mean Dykstra would start the next inning instead of Darling.
Right. Sandy Koufax used to talk about that. He said if you get the eighth hitter out, then you have the pitcher leading off the inning, and he can get out the 1 and 2 hitter. You always have the 3rd hitter, who's your best average hitter, leading off 2 innings down the road, and he's going to try to hit home runs instead of singles.
Darling, good hitting pitcher, squibs one toward third, fielded by Hamilton, and his throw off the bag, but Hatcher makes the catch and steps on first, and down go the Mets in the second. Still 1-0 Los Angeles.
And an errant throw, and threw one away last night. Doesn't seem very relaxed at third.
He's got company too.
Yes.
There's Steve Sachs trying to relax Jeff, and so's Mickey Hatcher. Well, that's a great shot there.
Absolutely.
A lot of times it just takes the first
breath.
ball. Yeah. I mean, this is what they said last night about Dave Cohn.
Want to know, I loved it. They asked all of the Mets, what'd you say to Cohn last night when they gathered around him after the 2 walks? Some of them were trying to pump him up, and others were trying to calm him down.
Well, Hernandez is yelling at him. Carter says, just take it easy, take a deep breath. Backman says, are you all right? I mean, of course, this is after he threw 8 straight balls.
Whatever that group therapy was last night, it sure worked. 2-0 pitch taken for a strike. 2-1 on Socha.
You know, all the self-help books that came out in the 70s, you know, saying you got to be honest with yourself, face reality and all that. This one game, bananas on that.
Right.
You got to trick yourself is what you got to do. You got to be a master of self-deceit.
I like what you said at the beginning tonight. You've got to get down and not up.
Yeah, that's right.
3-2 the count.
Everybody says you got to look yourself in the mirror. You don't dare look in a mirror. You're liable not like what you see before a game like this.
Jeff Hamilton is the perfect example of a guy who's got to get himself down a little bit right now. 3-2 pitch. is grounded toward the hole. Base hit. A second inning leadoff single for Mike Scioscia. 3 hits now off Ron Darling. And Jeff Hamilton comes to the plate.
Batting 7.
Wally Backman plays closer to second base because he doesn't go to his right as well as he goes to his left.
But also, Timmy, when you get a 3-2 count, you know a guy's going to throw a strike. You have to think maybe Scioscia's going to pull the ball.
Cheat a little more. You saw a ball like Mickey Hatcher last night hitting a ball into right field. Well, Backman, Hernandez, of course, gives him that ability to play, that independence, really, to play closer to second because Keith can range so far to his right. That's helped Backman a lot. But still, you'll see him closer to second than straight away at second.
Hamilton at the plate. 1-0 the count. Jeffries is even with the bag at third, looks into the dugout now and wants to see where Davey Johnson wants in position. Remember the other night, a tip-off here in a bunting situation when I asked Lasorda why he had Sharperson hit for Hamilton in a curious move in Game 4. He said Hamilton can't bunt, even though he did have 2 sacrifices this season. And the count 2-0.
Of course, where to play, whether you're a middle infielder or third or first baseman, is one of the most difficult things that a young player has to contend with. And we saw Jeffries, I thought he was out of position playing Hatcher that close in. And of course, now he has to look in the dugout. You want me up or in or back? I mean, when you have a guy like Brooks Robinson, you never ever think about that because he's always playing, it seems, where the ball's going to be hit.
We talk about Brooksy 4 years ago. Greg Jeffries was in high school, playing in a high school tournament for Sierra High in San Mateo. Here it is. He's playing the 7th game of the playoffs.
Base hit into left field. Scioscia will stop at second, and it's already 4 hits in an inning plus off Darling.
And how did they get him? He goes 3-2 on Scioscia. He goes 2-0 on Hamilton. And the key to Darling, he cannot. And you see Mel Stottlemyre right on the phone. They're not going to wait.
And they've got Dwight Gooden and Sid Fernandez available in the bullpen between innings. They went to the pen, and you will only see that in a 7th game, be it a championship series or a World Series. This was 2 minutes ago. Mackey Sasser, the catcher, with Fernandez on a coffee break. And the doc himself going to the bullpen.
Thing about it is, though, both of them are starting pitchers, and they're used to warming up for 15 minutes. You may not have that time now.
Here's Griffin up there to bunt. Bunts, and it drops safely. Base hit. With Hernandez backing up to the bag. Darling unable to get over there. It found the empty spot, and the bases are loaded with nobody out.
I am really surprised Hernandez wasn't playing even with the bag. He started out playing deep in the position, and Doc Gooden is warming up for the Mets. Hernandez is back. This ball normally caught. Darling breaks toward third, and Hernandez caught in between a base hit by Alfredo Griffin.
10-time Gold Glover got a little bit confused because Darling, and you can see his anger, he knows his position is towards the third base line. We've always talked about how Hernandez's quick move towards third base always gives him an advantage to throw a runner out. Didn't do it then.
Here comes Stottlemyre. Hershiser the batter. Darling has faced 8 batters. He's given up 4 singles, a double, and a sacrifice fly. Still, he trails only 1-0 in a jam in the 2nd inning. I asked Gooden before the game, how long would it take you to warm up? He said what he had hoped to do tonight is go down in the 2nd or 3rd inning and loosen up and then be ready in the middle innings. He said, though, if I'm needed in an emergency, it would probably take me 10 to 12 minutes to warm up. Normally about 18, he said.
Well, what always amazes me is, and I started for almost 19 years, is how they think that a starter, who's been starting all year, is going to go down and acclimate himself to the bullpen when you have a guy like Terry Leach, who's done a marvelous job all year long. Maybe for an inning, maybe for an inning and a half or 2 innings, but as a long man, when you pitch a couple days before,
Infield up at first and third, back at short and second, and it's 1-0 on Hershiser.
And of course, what Darling has to do here is minimize the damage. You think it's not easy to pitch in the National League? In the American League, you'd be facing a regular hitter here because of the DH. He's got a chance. Hershiser has not had a good year hitting, but had 19 hits last year, led all National League pitchers.
1-1. For Darling, it's a little bit of deja vu, perhaps. He pitched Game 7 in the 1986 World Series and had to come out after 3 with the Mets trailing the Red Sox. But he was taken off the hook, of course, as the Mets subsequently rallied, thanks mainly to Ray Knight, to win the championship. 1-1 on Hershiser. 1-2.
It's a big opportunity. You made a couple of bad pitches. Defense let you down, but you got a pitcher up there.
Socha at third, Hamilton is at second, and Griffin at first, nobody out.
So if you make the quality pitches, you have a chance to set up a double play with 1 out. Or maybe induce him to hit into 1.
Grounded toward Jeffries at third, and he drops the ball, throws to first. No! Everybody safe, 2-0. Thinking about, am I coming home with it? Or what?
Often when that happens, there's a peak. You're peeking at the base that you're going to throw it to instead of looking into the glove. Let's see if Jeff peeks, or Greg. Yeah, he's peeking home. He's looking up at home. Watch it again before the ball gets there. See the look up? He was looking at home, and the ball hit the heel of the glove, and he's got to go to first too late.
If he feels it cleanly, he has a chance because Socha was the runner, and all you have to do is get the force at the plate, no tag, and they get nothing. It's 2-0. Sachs is the batter. The Dodgers trying to break it open early. Scored as an error. Another save by Carter.
Well, the big problem so far is Darling is not throwing the first strike over. He's falling behind every hitter. Hershiser going down to first base on this and running full tilt. And it looks like when he hits first base that he may have injured the left leg. We'll see.
Bases loaded, nobody out, and the 1-0 pitch to Sachs, fouled away, 1-1.
And most pitchers would not run hard on that ball. They know it's a sure out. He doesn't give it his all. They get an out.
He's running hard. He's thinking about a 5-2-3 double play.
Exactly.
As he's moving down the line.
You can occasionally have mind blanks and forget about that. You know, you think the guy's just coming home, and all of a sudden he does go home, but you get doubled off at first. It's just real difficult to make quality pitches when you're always behind. 3-2, 2-0, now 2-1.
Sachs looks for a fastball here. If he doesn't get it, he spits at it.
That's what he got the base hit the first time.
Yep. A 1-0 fastball.
Yep. Trying to hit it right up, back up the middle.
Back up the middle for a base hit. Hamilton comes in to score. Griffin being waved in. The throw to the plate, not in time. 4-0. To the mound, Ron Darling to the clubhouse. And on 2 days rest, Dwight Gooden, who was warming up, figures to be coming into the game. Hershiser at second base. Meanwhile, Hershiser shaken up as we showed you on the replay, and there's Bill Bueller out there to check him out. A wry little smile, so it's not too serious, but they just want to make sure. Here comes Gooden, 4-0 Dodgers, back after this word from your local station.
Into center field.
Darling backing up home, and watch the play as Griffin crosses home plate. Initially, I thought Carter's foot tripped him, but from this angle, it doesn't appear that that's the case. He just took that last long stride, and the left foot just dragged across home plate.
Meanwhile, Hatcher bunts foul outside third. When we went to commercial, Bill Buehler was out checking out Hershiser, and when Gooden came in to pitch, Hershiser was able to go to the bench for a couple of minutes. And of course, with Hershiser moving down to first base to beat the throw from Jeffries, and we showed you the replay, and I don't know, that's not really a limp, that's just his gait there. But it's interesting that he did not attempt to go to third when the throw came through to try to get Griffin at home. He opts to remain at second and not extend it.
Now he's got to run hard on the bunt.
Right. Except Hatcher swings away and grounds it to the right side. The runners advance as Backman throws them out. And the runners moving as Hatcher is able to move them over on what amounts to a swinging bunt.
Yeah, he moves them over so they can walk Gibson.
Actually, the runners were running then. That is one of those rare hit and runs that managers talk about in spring training and rarely execute. Hatcher can handle the bat very well. Hershiser and Sachs taking off. You can gamble when you're up by 4, and that's Tommy Lasorda's intention right here, to gamble and try to blow the Mets out as early as he can.
Except I mean, Hatcher may have had a chance to get a hit, but he, in essence, gives himself up, so you know they're going to walk Gibson.
You got your number 4 hitter up there, though.
Right, and one pitch gets you out of the inning. So
one pitch blows it out, too.
That's true.
20 home runs on the year for Marshall, and he's having a good series. Interesting game, isn't it?
Maybe that's because I never threw a grand slam, and I never wanted to have the bases loaded.
Well, Marshall will come up with the bases loaded, facing Dwight Gooden, making his first ever relief appearance. And if you follow the Mets through the years, you know that they protected Gooden's arm. They never wanted him to pitch on 3 days rest. It was always 4. And now he's forced to pitch on 2.
Another example of that is he's only had 1 regular season game where he's pitched more than 9 innings. He did pitch 9 2/3 innings, or 9 1/3 at Shea against Houston in the '86 playoffs.
Not to mention they really watch his pitch count, because he's a high fastball strikeout type of pitcher, has a tendency to throw more pitches than other pitchers would normally do.
Mike Marshall, as you can see, he finally figured Gooden out to some extent in the last couple of seasons. Infield double play depth. 1 out, 4-0 Dodgers. Strike. 0-1. Breaking pitch.
Well, it might be because Marshall's really cut down on a swing because of the back injury. He used to take a big long stride and come back. Now he looks almost like a right-handed Stam usual from a stance standpoint.
That's grounded to the right side. Backman shovels, and it's a high throw, and they don't get anybody. 5-0 as the Mets come apart at the seams in the second inning.
Tell you what happened there. Wally Backman laid back on the ball instead of charging the ball, and by laying back, he didn't give the ball to Elster in time, and Elster has one eye on Gibson. Watch. Little soft toss, and Elster's just thinking about one, and in the transfer, he drops the ball. If Backman charges that ball, then he has a chance for the underhanded play.
Well, he's
what
too
an
far.
effort by Kirk Gibson.
Yeah, too far to throw the ball underhanded.
Yep.
We saw Steve Sachs last inning throw it overhanded. Didn't get the double play, but got the out.
Still the bases loaded as Shelby swings and misses. He's the 9th man to come up in a nightmarish second inning for the Mets. Their second error. They're down 5-0. And the Dodgers still with the bases loaded and only 1 out. And it's 0-2.
Shelby is the type of hitter you want up here, especially if you're the Mets, because he is a strikeout guy. 128 during the year. He struck out 9 times during this playoffs.
I know one thing on that last play, you'd never know that Gibson has that hamstring problem. It was almost as if he was cured in a second. 1 and 2. I mean, we've been watching him for the last 2 nights, and he's been limping, and it's affected his swing. But he looked like he was 100% healthy going between first and second. Mind over matter, I guess. I don't know.
Mind over tendon.
Yeah. One and 2 the count. To deep left center field, backing up is McReynolds, deep enough to score a run. Sachs comes in to score. Gibson's going to third, and Marshall goes to second. A sacrifice fly, and it's 6-0.
Well, he gets the ball up in the strike zone, and he hits it deep to left field, and that's the right here. Gibson limps a little bit, but great speed. You know he's going to tag up. Marshall also tags up and gets into scoring position.
And the crowd boos the intentional walk to Socha, who began this parade with a single to right against Darling, and now Hamilton will come up with the bases loaded to become the 11th Dodger to bat in the second inning.
Tell you, you have heard of hills to climb. Well, the Mets collectively are facing the south wall of Everest. I'll tell you that.
Third baseman, Jeff Hanover.
Straight up.
Hamilton. He singled in the second inning in this inning. Gibson is at third. Marshall at second. Socha at first. 2 down. Oh and 1. Sunday night at about 11 o'clock, Davy Johnson's team was 3 outs away from going up 3-1 in the series. That was a long, long, long time ago. One and 1.
And the Dodgers, with all of that energy, poured it into 6 runs, 3 in the third, 3 in the fourth Monday afternoon, and beat the Mets 7-4. And part of that was the energy from the night before, the momentum.
Saved again by Carter. 2-1 the count. Gooden has never relieved in his professional career, minors or majors. Foul tip, and it's 2-2.
That's what makes it so difficult for him to assume this role. He's never, ever known what his arm's going to feel like 2 days after he started to try to get a hitter out.
Two and 2 the count, 2 out. Bases loaded, second inning, 6-0 Dodgers. But the Dodgers send up 11. Score 5 to the third we go. The crowd going wild. 6-0. Infield.
Yes, this is the team that led the National League's in fewest errors. And right here, there's got to be a miscommunication. Darling's going to third. Hernandez thinks he's coming to first. The ball falls safely.
Here's a play with the bases loaded. Jeffries peeking up at the runner at third, and the ball hits the heel of the glove, and the throw late to get Hershiser at first.
And here a routine play, except he shovels it underhand instead of overhand off the bag. And Elster, he would have off the bag anyway. He's going to be safe. He never assumed that the umpire was going to call that, but it appeared that the throw was so far offline, he would have been safe anyway.
All right, now let's see about Hershiser. It's been a long time since he's been on the mound. He's also rounded the bases, and he's thrown a lot of pitches through 2 innings. So that's the little ray of good news for the Mets right now.
Yeah, but the bad news is Len Dykstra swinging at the first pitch with a 6-run deficit here. Particularly in lieu of the fact that Hershiser has a sore leg. You got to make him pitch.
He was shaking his leg when he warmed up.
0-1 pitch. Dykstra runs up to bunt and doesn't commit, and the count is 1-1.
Now it's the right leg, the one he pushes off of. Take a look again, very compact windup. Look at his right leg. Doesn't appear to bother him right now. He's a straight leg pitcher. He's not like a Tom Seaver, a drop and drive type pitcher.
2-1 on Dykstra. Bud Harrelson and Gary Carter and Kevin McReynolds. In the 3rd inning in Los Angeles, Dodgers on top 6-0. Off the glove and out into center field. Hershiser just tipped it, but really couldn't slow it down. And Dykstra starts the 3rd inning with a single. So Len is on, and it brings up Wally Backman.
Second baseman.
Well, again, Lenny, and that's an unusual swing. He fakes a bunt. Again, it's a 2-1 count, so he could afford to do that. Bring the 3rd baseman in, and then hits a ground ball up the middle.
You remember we talked about it last night, about how he tries to drive it by the 3rd baseman. That play, it hits Hershiser in the right foot.
Yeah, I thought it tipped off the glove. It actually hit him at the bottom of the shoe. 1-0 the count on Backman.
But that was that movement we were talking about with Dykstra in the batter's box. That unusual thing. He tries to suck the 3rd baseman in to hit it by.
Backman lifts it in the air to left field. Gibson is there. 1 out. 1 gone with Dykstra at first. And that'll bring up Keith Hernandez, who drew a walk in the 1st inning.
First baseman.
If the Mets score 2 or 3 runs now, they can erase some of that heading backwards or being pushed backwards by the Dodgers. But they have got to erase that 5-run second some way. You can't do it by coming up empty here in the 3rd.
And they have Hernandez, and then Strawberry follows him, and McReynolds.
Well, again, it depends what approach you take as a hitter. You know, if Backman hits fly balls, then you know that's counterproductive because he's a ground ball hitter. Hernandez has to do what he does best, just go for singles. Just think of the luxury that Hershiser has. I mean, he's been in almost all the games he pitched down the month of September, down the stretch, were close ball games. First game, 2-run lead for 8 innings. He only got him 3 runs in the 2nd game. Excuse me, got him 4. Left with a 4-3 lead before the Jay Howell incident. So he knows one mistake can't beat him tonight.
The big thing from the Mets standpoint is you can't try to get them all back at once. You're not going to do that. We used the football analogy the other day, and it's the same as a quarterback not going for the bomb every time to overcome maybe a 20-point deficit early in the 3rd quarter.
Well, there's no such thing as a 6-run homer. So it's a point well taken. Dykstra at first base. Jeffries. He's been to the top and the bottom in a very short period of time. He's experienced the heights and the depths in 5 weeks as Hernandez hits it foul down the line, and the count 1-2.
Of course, when you look at last night's ball game, how did the Mets get their runs? They were aggressive. 6 runs takes a lot of aggression away from an offensive attack. Can't hit and run, can't steal.
Hatcher still holding Dykstra on at first base. That's interesting with a 6-run lead.
I would think that the Dodgers feel if they're going to give him second base, he's going to take it here. And so they do have Hatcher holding on, but again, it opens up the right side of the infield.
Well, how about one step behind him? Of course, Hatcher, again, hasn't played first base that much. A little bit better chance to get a grounder in the hole. Stay away from the big inning.
2-2 pitch is grounded down to Sachs. He goes to Griffin 1, back to first, double play. At the end of 2 1/2, the Dodgers, when we go to the 4th inning, we'll see. Griffin grounds out on the first pitch in the bottom of the 3rd. And it will bring up Oral Hershiser. A reminder coming up on Saturday, college football, 3rd-ranked USC hosting Washington, or Michigan takes on Iowa at 3:30 Eastern time. Now, Tim, if you're Lasorda, what do you do here? It's 6-0. You've got the gimpy Gibson, even though he obviously has run very well tonight. You've got Jose Gonzalez, an outstanding defensive outfielder. What do you do?
I think if there's any doubt as to whether he can go full speed like he did to second base, you take him out and play a defensive game, even though it's the 3rd inning. I mean, it's not like Gonzalez has no experience as a major leaguer. He's been up parts of 3 seasons, and I think he'll be in the game in the top of the 4th.
1-2 the count.
You got 6 innings left, and you want the best defense you can throw out there, even at the risk of sacrifice. I mean, Gibson's already been the inspiration for 6 runs to be scored, or at least a case can be made for that.
And also, you don't want to jump the gun, but you've got to keep in mind, hey, you got a pretty good chance to go to the World Series right now, and why take that extra little chance and maybe lose him? Backman throws Hershiser out. Oral only going about halfway down the line to first, so he took that play off. But if ever a guy deserved to, it's him here, 2 down. Gibson and Charlie Strasser.
This is almost as big as a debate as we're going to have tomorrow night. It's a monumental decision here.
But you know that Gibson doesn't want to come out. But his body language indicates to us that Lasorda has already told him. Sachs at the plate. Knocked down by Gooden. And the Dodgers are gone 1-2-3. To the 4th inning we go. It's the Dodgers 6 and the Mets nothing. He'll grab his first baseman's glove. And he'll bat in Gibson's spot, and they'll move Mickey Hatcher to left field. So Gibson goes limping up the runway as we start the 4th inning. Hatcher now in left field. So Mickey moves from first to left. Stubbs in the lineup in the number 3 spot. And Strawberry lifts a fly ball to shallow left center field. Shelby, 1 out.
Well, we speculated about Jose Gonzalez coming into the ball game. And it's kind of an interesting move because Mickey Hatcher is not your best defensive left fielder. If they're going to get Stubbs in there as a left-handed hitter to face a right, I mean, you do have the alternative of Danny Heap.
Yeah, who hits much better as a regular player than he does a pinch hitter. And then you save Stubbs if you have to pinch hit. So you only hurt yourself defensively in one place.
Yeah, and you leave Hatcher at first, who appears to be more comfortable than Stubbs has been.
At least of late.
Yeah.
And there's Gonzalez, who would probably, if this lead holds up for the Dodgers, eventually get into the game in the 8th or 9th inning. 0-2.
Of course, who are we to second guess Tommy? I mean, he's only got a 6-0 lead in the 7th game of the playoffs.
Pitch. Well, again, I hope, if nothing else, it puts to rest, win or lose, for Lasorda. And we've touched upon it a couple of times during the series, the fact that Tommy seated with Joe Amalfitano, a larger-than-life character to a lot of people, and you tend to overlook his managerial skills. But we mentioned in game 1, his record speaks for itself. Finished his first 6 times in 12 years as a big league manager, 5 times in 8 years as a minor league manager, 2 other times with the Dodgers. The team goes down to the final day of the season. Hit down the line in right field. Stubbs chasing it, but Franklin can't get there. A foul ball. And the count remains 2-2, and a nice hand for Stubbs' effort.
He runs well for a big man. Had 11 stolen bases. Used to play the outfield for the Dodgers, and you can see not only does he have good speed, following the ball all the way just out of reach. I think about a couple of years ago, back in 1986, I did a game in Houston. They had Len Matusik playing left field, Franklin Stubbs in center. In right field, they had Mike Marshall and Greg Brock playing first. And they had 4 first basemen playing defense. You wonder why they're a better club this year?
Got him on a breaking pitch. Fooled him, and down he goes. And McReynolds more frustrated over the score than anything else, because there was no doubt about that pitch.
It's a combination of both of them. This ball does not break. It's they call a hanging curveball, just a backup curveball, and apparently Wendelstedt thought it got the inside corner. I think Kevin thinks the ball was high. You don't see emotion from him.
Line drive, base hit by Jeffries with 2 out here in the 4th inning. The strikeout of McReynolds was the first for Hershiser, so Jeffries with a single. The Mets have 4 hits, but Hershiser has spaced them. 1 single in each of the first 4 innings, and up comes Gary Carter.
I'll tell you can't help but be impressed by the heart of Kirk Gibson. I mean, here's a guy on a 3-year contract the first year, and it's very comfortable nowadays for people to criticize athletes with long-term contracts. But here's a guy you'd never know that Kirk Gibson has a long-term contract. You would think the way he's been playing that his contract's run out and he's seeking something.
Gardner hits a 2-bouncer to Griffin. He makes the play himself. That's down to the 4th after 3.5. Dodgers 6, Mets nothing. Back at first, and then 5 in the 2nd when they sent 11 men to the plate. Lead 6-0 as you look down from the Goodyear Blimp, Columbia. Dodger Stadium, sort of reminiscent right now of the way Royal Stadium felt in the 7th game of the 1985 World Series, when the Kansas City Royals exploded early and eventually blew out the Cardinals 11-0.
The Dodgers have a pitcher that remembers that game, John Tudor.
Absolutely, who was the starting pitcher that night. And before that night was done, Tudor was getting stitched up in the hospital after punching an electric fan. Hatcher hits one off the end of the bat on the ground to second, and Backman throws him out. 1 away in the 4th inning, and it will bring up Franklin Stubbs.
First baseman, Franklin Stubbs.
That's what a good curveball do to you. Timmy has said all during the series, just a free swinger. Ball he hit the second base, that'll be about 4 inches outside.
Franklin Stubbs now hitting in Gibson's spot, and it was Stubbs who started this series. You'll recall he was the opening night first baseman. And tried to bunt at a very curious time, and that, as much as anything else, caused Lasorda to remove him from the lineup. It's funny how you don't forgive somebody with an average of around 225, and then last night, I mean, what's Lasorda going to say when everybody says to him, what in the world was Gibson doing in the 1st inning? Tommy backed him to the hilt. 1-1.
So did Davey Johnson. He didn't want to get him angry. He said, I assume he's trying to get him over. Because I think the bunt that he failed to have later on in game 1 was even worse. He didn't execute a bunt in a sacrifice situation.
Ripped into left center for a base hit. Franklin Stubbs with a 1-out single in the 4th inning.
Right fielder, Mike Marshall.
And Mike Marshall coming up. Johnson has to think about Gooden now. He's batting 2nd in the top of the 5th inning.
Oh, fastball hitter usually likes the ball down, but if you're going to swing at the high fastball off Dwight Gooden, you better try to go the other way, and he does. Much better fastball hitter than breaking ball hitter.
Mike Marshall 0 for 2. Tries to check his swing. 0-1.